Good morning, everybody. This is Harvey Fierro and Michael Johnson. We'll be doing the webinar today. It's called Getting the Most Out of StackVision. And I'm hoping it's morning for most of you. I guess some of you are already at noontime. And so when we were approached by marketing about doing this webinar, Michael and I, thought about it. We couldn't figure out what exactly do we want to put on here. So we kind of focused it more for new users. Kind of giving you tips and tricks on how to get around using StackVision, kind of for your day-to-day interactions with StackVision, and hopefully we can help you save some time and use your time more efficiently. Michael will be doing the first section here, so he will take it away right now.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Like Harvey mentioned, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm sure I've probably spoken to most of y'all on the phone before. I've been in the support group for about 7 years now. And so the first things that we're gonna go over, kind of a brief reminder, refresher of some first things to check, things to look at on a daily basis, maybe when you first open StackVision and you're having your first cup of coffee, or if you're like me, by the time you get around to starting work, maybe on your third cup of coffee, but nevertheless. So what we're gonna look at is we're gonna look at how to find some reports and tools in StackVision, sort of going about it sort of manually, opening things up from toolbars and opening reports, things that you would want to look at on a daily basis. And then we're going to cover, looking at the same stuff, we're going to actually simplify that process, show you how you can do things even quicker. So this is sort of like what we call the daily dose of DAS. It's some of the same processes that our reporting team actually uses when they go in to check customer systems. So one of the first things you'd want to check is communication and whether or not StackVision is polling with the data controllers. A good way to do that would be to actually in StackVision is open up controller tools. And to get there, you would, up at the top toolbar, you would go to Tools, down to Controller Tools. And this opens up and shows you a list of your data controllers, and it'll show whether or not they're communicating. So here we've got 4 different data controllers, and then it shows us our different averages that are retrieved from the data controllers and get pulled into StackVision along with calibration records. So this is a test machine that we're looking at here, and it doesn't currently have any data controllers that are communicating or polling. So this is a good example. We can see here we've got, this would be a good example of seeing communication issues. If the averages are displayed in red like they are here, it means that we are not communicating. If they were, the averages would be displayed in green. An easier way to view and see communication errors, when you first log in, down at the bottom right of the screen is this satellite dish icon. And if it has a red triangle there, it's a red triangle with an exclamation point in it, and that means you can hover over and it's going to tell you that you have communication issues. And you can go ahead and just click that icon and it will launch the controller tools screen for you. One other thing I just wanted to note here on this, within controller tools, is the retrieval section down here. This is where you can actually backpull data. So if you were having communication issues, as soon as you got those restored, you could go in and tell StackVision to reach out to the data controller and pull back in that data for the amount of time that you had missed. So for instance here, could select 1 minute data, whichever logger you would go and select which one you wanted to backpull for, and then hit retrieve. Then you would get a retrieval status here that would show you, you've got that many records, 1,129 records to retrieve, and then as it started retrieving, the progress bar would show you where you were at with that process. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this since we're not actually pulling any controllers. That won't actually be doing anything. So after communication issues, I like to go and make sure that my process now sequences have passed since I last checked them. So just a brief reminder, if anybody's new, your process now sequences are basically a list of scheduled tasks that run, and it runs different tasks such as math and missing data substitution. And it's a critical part of StackVision, and making sure that these sequences pass without error is a critical part of making sure that your data is most up to date. So a way to check the process now sequences would be to go to the process now history report. So again, up at the toolbar, go to reports, open up the process now history, and then you would want to run this going back to whatever dates you maybe last checked. You typically have a process now sequence that runs every night just after midnight for each unit, and it will go back and run from the beginning of the quarter up to the last completed day. So technically, if you check, the current day's process now sequences, as long as they had passed, then you should be okay. But so for instance, I'm just going to select everything and run it over this date period here. This, like I said, this is a test machine, and so we don't have data for current day of March 9th. So we're going to be going back probably into February to look at stuff. But so you can see I run this report, and if I cruise through it, it's showing me which sequences have run, the time that they were started, how long they actually run, and then the actual start date and end date of the data period that's being processed. And anything with the status of OK means that that process has completed, and so no errors. We're doing good. So an example of seeing an error, I will just select one specific sequence. So you can see in the status, this jumps off the page. You can see you've got an error here, and then that's when you would want to take note of that and then begin to troubleshoot and see why you might have gotten that error. Other things that are important to check on a daily basis would be alarms and what alarms have occurred since you've last logged in. So down in the bottom left, you have this alarm ribbon that actually tells you how many active alarms are currently in your system. If you click on that ribbon, it takes you to the active alarm screen. So here, we're on the data tab. There's three different tabs, three different kinds of alarms here that get displayed as being active. So this means that currently these alarms either haven't been returned to normal or they have not been acknowledged by anybody. It's on the data alarm tab. You can see you would display things such as exceedances, or maybe data's out of control or data's invalid. And then this would give information such as when that data period started, specific parameters, intervals, and actual show you values, which is helpful, especially for exceedance alarms. Some of the other alarms you can flip to the other tabs. System alarms would be like communication issues. And then application alarms would be like process now failure, that would actually throw an alarm. And then things like if ESC support logs on and off your system, then that would also throw an alarm. If you wanted to look at alarms that had already been acknowledged, perhaps maybe the control room, some alarms came in the night before and the control room had already acknowledged them and they'd returned to normal, they wouldn't show up in the active alarm screen. What you can do though is run a report, alarm history report, and go back and look at, you can select certain units. I usually just select all the exceptions to make sure I cover everything that has happened. I'll select all parameters as well. And although you can, if you were trying to track down maybe just like a CO2 alarm or something, you could just select that to only return those results. But for this, I'm going to select everything and run the alarm history report, which you can see we've had several communication issues during this time period, different kind of data alarms, calibration out of control, communication errors, exceedance alarms. So this would be something that on a daily basis I would run and take note of, and then troubleshoot whatever necessary. The report does allow more detail. You can check the show all details box, which will give you dates and times of when alarms might have happened. Or, for instance, if I look at this CO2 calibration out of control, I can actually expand this, and it will show me who acknowledged the alarm, when it was acknowledged, and then, you know, alarm time, return to normal time, which reason and action codes have been applied, that kind of thing. So you can take note for any sort of, you know, daily report or you know, any sort of checks that you might need to do. So for this instance, if we were going to be looking at this calibration, why this would have failed, or we just needed to go and actually look at these records, the next thing that I would look at would be to actually go open the calibration detail report. So again, this is another report. Up at the toolbar, you'd go to reports, down to calibration detail. I know that that was unit 1, and I'll just go ahead and select everything, even though specifically we were looking at CO2, and run the calibration detail. And I need to run this. This was on February 17th. And then you would go and check. I would always want to check what calibrations have run since I last logged into the system. Take note. I can see here that we failed a cal on the 17th at, you know, in the 9 o'clock hour, but then passed in the 10 o'clock hour. So yeah, so this is just sort of a manual way to go in and do these daily checks. And I believe Harvey's going to show you now how to maybe simplify this process even more so that you don't actually have to log in and run these reports. So Harvey, if you want to take it away.
Yep. So as Michael just went over, you know, he basically went through each one of these and manually showed you how to go check all these different things like communication and so forth. So one of the things that I usually recommend to our customers that will make your life easier is to use the scheduled task, and you can actually have these reports sitting there waiting for you when you come in the morning. So you could have your alarms reports sitting on a printer if you choose to print them out, or you could have them send it to your email. You can have this cal detail report, process now history report. So all those can be set up to be run automatically before you even get to the office. Or, you know, if you know your cows run at 6 in the morning, you can have the report, you know, print out at 7 o'clock after it's all done. So the way you schedule these reports is you go to the task, you go to configuration, you go to the task scheduler wizard, and then click next, and then we're going to create a new task. So you select create a new task, hit next, and then are we trying to create a report or a process now sequence? So we're just going to be focusing on reports for this particular part of the webinar. So we'll click report, go to next, and then at this point you can figure out which report do we want to run. So let's just say we want to do a calibration detail. So which one do I want to do? I want to do both units? Do I want to do a specific unit, specific parameters, or any? If you check all, it'll just do all the cal parameters that are being recorded, all the calibrations that are being recorded. And then, so for a calibration, typically most people want to print out the calibrations for that current day that happened that morning, because you want to make sure that all your cows passed that day to minimize downtime. So we'll just do today minus 0 days, and today minus 0 days. So it'll basically go from midnight to 23:59 on the current day. And then you can select a footer. You can say no footer. You can say show report date at the bottom, so it'll show the report date. So once you have your parameters set up, your source and your units, your source and your parameters set up, and your time frame that you want it for, click on next. And then what kind of cows do we want to record? So typically you'd want to select the dailies. But as you can see, you do have the option to do your quarterlies and weeklies if you'd like to set that up. And then do you want to hide offline cows and include the protocol gas details? So that's the gas bottle information that you saw kind of on the right-hand side of the report. So this is kind of personal preference. If you guys don't need to see offline cows, and you can definitely check that. Click on next. And then it asks you, what time do you want to print the report? So typically, so for example, if your cows run at 6 in the morning, you might want to make it 7 o'clock. If it only takes 15 minutes to run the report, the cows, you could even say, you could say 6:30. And by that point, the cows are already done. And then it automatically enters the next day or the current day, sorry. And the time will update automatically to the next day when you save this. So it'll automatically run the next day, depending on what you selected here. So I want to do this daily. And then as you can see here, the options are, I can send it to a printer. So if you have a printer set up, if you do want to send it to a printer, you have a printer configured on that computer, it should show up here. On this one, we don't have any printer set up, but you could also send it to emails. So if you want to send it to an email, you can definitely do that here. For example, at spectrum.com, and then I can separate with the comma, and I can add somebody else's email. And what I like to do is, or if you have an email group for the INC group or something like that, you could definitely use that email and put that group in, and then everybody in that group would get the email with this particular report that you're setting up. And then you can also choose whether you want it to be sent out in PDF or in Excel format. So whichever format you prefer, you can send that out. You click on next. And so this is kind of the tricky part. So the way the task scheduler works, you have to make sure and use an account that has access to run scheduled reports, right? So for this particular system, I think we have an account called administrator. Put that in. It'll make you confirm the password, and then you give it a name. So something that makes sense to you. So it can be daily cows. You could even say unit 1 if it was a particular unit, daily cows, something like that. And then make sure that the enable checkbox is set. Click on next. Oh, what? Sorry about that. I didn't type it in right. And there we go. So then this, right before you do the finish, you can kind of verify that you have everything set up correctly. It's a calibration detail. It happens daily, and it'll tell you at what time you're doing the report, beginning on this date and time. 6:30. It says the report will output will be sent to the following way. So it'll tell you it's a PDF report and where it's being sent, which email groups or email addresses are being used. And then at that point, you just click finish, and tomorrow morning you'll have a report at 6:30 in the morning waiting for you in your email when you get there. So we can do that for any of these reports. We can do that. Like I said, the options are, you got your process now history down here, so you could do the same thing, set it up to run for a specific time. We can do alarm history reports. You can do an alarm history report for specific units, parameters, and so forth. And of course, you can always do average data. So if you just want to print out some average data reports, you can do that as well, and just schedule them. And so all that data is sitting there waiting for you. All these reports are sitting there waiting for you when you get there in the morning. Makes life a little bit easier. Like I said, you can have them printed out or sent via email to several groups that you want. So again, take advantage of using the task scheduler wizard under the configuration tool. It'll make your life easier when, especially when you're having to check stuff every day and do the same thing, checking the same data all the time. So you can do that. All right, Michael, you want to go with show them some linked reports?
Yeah. So yeah, like Harvey just showed you how to schedule those reports to show up in your email or on the printer. And so when you went through that, you know, you can set up those reports and you can select certain parameters. So, you know, when that gets sent to you, it's already has the dates and the units and the parameters that you need. Well, let's say you wanted to run that same report, you know, later in the day, maybe. You could go and just open up, you know, say like an average data report and go and select all the parameters that you needed or calibration detail or something like that. But what's even easier is if we set up what we call linked reports, where all of the parameters and the units and all of that stuff is already predefined. You don't have to select anything. All you would really need to do is just put your date range in. And so there's kind of a common misconception here between linked reports and custom reports. So what we're going to be going over is actual linked reports. We're going to take like an average data report and then just select some of the data that we would like to see in that report. So how to create these reports is you need to get to what we call the reports website. And that is, you have to connect to that. You need to know what server the actual reporting services are running on. Most of the time, that's going to be the StackVision server. But, you know, IT groups, DBAs, they do like to separate out maybe where SQL and the reporting services are installed. Maybe that's on one server and then StackVision is actually on another server. So you would need to know that server name or IP. So I'm going to go and I'm going to open up a browser. And to get to the reports website, this server is called SPT Serve 37. So /reports, and that takes you to that takes you to the reports website where you can see it has the layout of all the different reports that are configured in this StackVision server. So here, let's say I wanted to create an average data report that already had parameters and units selected. Pretty simple process. You would hover over the average data and click on the down arrow to give you some more options, and you would go to the create linked report option. So pretty easy. You would first want to name the report. So I already got a name there, so I'll just select what I've got. So linked report test, and then I'm going to choose a location, basically which folder I would like this report in StackVision. So I'm just going to put it in the root custom folder, hit OK, and then you need to click OK again so that it saves the location. Go back, oops, where's my, okay, so I didn't add the parameters yet, but this is a good example. So I've got it set here. And so if I needed to go back and edit this report, instead of going back to create linked report, now I can just go to manage, go back, and then I can go to parameters, which is going to be all the different parameters actually that are able to select in the report. So, you know, that's like the sources, the actual parameters, the intervals, all of that type of stuff. You can go ahead and set that so that when you open this report, you know, it'll pull up whatever you need. So for this example, I've got a couple things here. So you would need to select what it is that you want to display, right? So here, I would select source, and then in the drop down, you would actually type in whatever unit it is that you want displayed. So if it's unit 2, you know, I can change this, go back to unit 1. And then so the next time I open this, it's automatically going to have unit 1. Parameters, you can put whatever parameters are for that unit in that system. So when you first open it, that'll be blank, and then you actually have to type in the different parameters you wish to use. I'll go ahead and set that, and then hit apply at the bottom. So now I'll relaunch StackVision. And then this custom report, this linked report, will be available in the custom folder. So that's kind of where that, I think the misconception, most people put their linked reports in the custom folder. So that's why people will say, you know, call them linked or custom reports when actually they're linked reports. So I can open this up and you can see it automatically ran with the right unit and right parameters. All I need to do is just put a date range. So going back to what I talked about the first time is having, you know, like the calibration detail, maybe a process now history, maybe an average data report, alarm history. You could go ahead and have those linked reports already set up in the system so that when you log in, you know, maybe you get them emailed to you, but then maybe you need to check them again. So you could log into the system, and if you already had linked reports set for those, you could take advantage of this group report generator. And what this can do, this is pretty cool. You can go and actually select the different linked reports you may have configured. You have different options here, but you can select your start date, and let's say you wanted to open all these in StackVision. You would check the box there, hit OK, and then it would actually open all those reports for you for the date and time that you needed. So you could easily just flip through all these reports. Other options here, you could save these to a file, you could send them to an email, or even send them all to a printer and print them off again if needed. Close some of these windows. So yeah, that's it for linked reports and the group report generator. So I think Harvey's gonna talk to you a little bit about Data Lab now.
Yeah, so it seems like anytime you're working in StackVision, at some point or another, you'll probably have to open up Data Lab and do some work in there. Either maybe sometimes you have to edit some data mask or some data got flagged incorrectly or something like that. So, but you'll eventually find yourself having to work in Data Lab. So let's click on Data Lab, and I'm going to just pull up some parameters. So go select a unit, and then just go pick some parameters. And I'm just going to randomly pick some stuff here. Doesn't really matter which parameters we pull in. And then I'm just going to pull in. I know we have data for the previous month. We don't have any data for the current month. So I'm going to pull up some data for previous month for this specific parameters. But if you find yourself doing work, so if you want to look at flags, if you want to look see if anything's missing, invalid, that kind of thing, you know, you'll find yourself working in Data Lab. But if you're having to do this quite a bit with the same parameters, there's some things that we can do that'll save you some time too, where you can create some what we call Data Lab views. But also be aware that there's also some flag coloring that you can show, that you can set up, called flag color preferences. So you can go change these colors for these different data masks, such as out of control, maintenance, in cal, and you can change these colors to whatever color you would like. So whatever, let's see, we'll try that. And then if I retrieve data, and I'll say turn on my color preferences. So now when you pull up your data, you can see these color preferences right away. You can right away see if you can have a specific color code for invalid data. As you can see, you can modify that for missing, invalid, and so forth, and see what particular data mask is on that particular data. But what I did want to show more than anything is, so say you're using and you're looking at these specific parameters on a specific unit or units all the time. One of the things you can do is save this as what we call a Data Lab view. So there's a little icon up here that says Save View, and let's just say we'll call this Harvey's Data Lab view. We'll make it a shared view so that other people, it can be your own personal view that'll only show up on your account, or you can make it a shared view so other people can see it. Click OK. And so now when we go back, if you click on this home button here, and I'm going to close Data Lab. Let's close that out and let's go to Data Lab Viewer. Make sure you select Data Lab Viewer. And then notice there's a shared section. Just so you know that this top section here says test. That's the account that we're using to log into. If you look at the top here, it says StackVision test. That's the account that we're logged into StackVision with. So if I did not share it, it would only show up under here, under the test section. But since I shared it, there should be a Harvey's Data Lab view here. I can double click it and it'll open up. So now all those parameters that I already have set up previous month. So that data that I already had set up, so notice it pulls it up already automatically for you. So you can see the data in here without having to go select all your parameters. So you're having to do and see certain data all the time. You can definitely do that. Now, one other thing that you can do when you're working in Data Lab and some of these other reports as well is for example, you see me change the day to previous day or previous month for some of this stuff to retrieve data. You can also set up a default time frame. So if you find yourself every time you come in and working in Data Lab or these report that you're using the previous day a lot, you can definitely set that up as your default. And then when you open up Data Lab again, or a Data Lab view, it will typically go to the previous day. Notice it went to 3/7, and then it's got the flags. So orange is missing, right? So showing all the orange data. So notice it defaulted to what I have selected down here, and you can just by checking or unchecking this box down here, it'll. And so if you find yourself, well, I always want to look at previous quarters data, you could also do that, set it up for a previous quarter's default. So whatever you're doing that particular time, you can just switch it, and that way you're not having to set you're not having to change the date and time frame all the time. So if you're opening up several data labs and that kind of stuff, that'll really help you with that. Now, another cool thing you can do, and this can be done with not just Data Lab, but any of the other, oops, let me go back to Data Lab, hold on. Clicking this home button will take you back home to this screen. I'm gonna pull up Data Lab Unit 1, let's just pull up some data, retrieve, and say I want to, well, let me go previous month. Let's pull up some data here. But I want to compare, maybe I want to compare Unit 1 and Unit 2. One of the things you can do is you can do a horizontal or a vertical group. And now I can open another tab here. And if I want to open up another data lab, I can. Let me go back home. Data lab here. So it depends on which one I'm selected in, and I can pull up parameters for Unit 2, and maybe I want to compare a channel in this particular unit. Can't find something that here's CO2. We'll do that. Do previous month. So if you want to compare data from one source to another or different units, you can do that, and you can do that side by side. And like I said, you can do that. You know, and have if you have multiple units, 3 units or something. So just remember, you can do that. There's also, not only is it vertical, you can do a horizontal one as well. So that's pretty cool. So you can see multiple. You can scroll up and down and back and forth on depending on which unit you want to be looking at. You can compare data. Sometimes you want to look at something like a 3-hour average and a 1-hour average, so you can pull those up independently and see what's going on with those. So you can do that on split screens, which makes it pretty cool. Let's see, I think that's all I had on this, Michael. Did you want to do the SimScape?
Yeah. So Harvey's showing you different views in Data Lab and how to set those Data Lab views. And as you can see, sometimes it might get a little confusing on maybe what it is you need to look at, or get confusing on the sort of how the parameters flow with one another with their respective calculations. So a good tool to use in this situation is called SimScape, and that exists under, you can go to View, it'll be in the Task Explorer window on the side as well. Wrong thing, View and SimScape. And what this is going to show you is this is all of the parameters that you have configured in your system. that are enabled. So the data flow would work. So I'll just go in and pick something like gas flow, for instance. You can see how it shows the data flow going. It starts with the actual unit and then shows what data controllers are connected to that, and then it goes through and will show you, which parameters are used in which calculations, and it flows down to your target parameter, which here is gas flow. You don't have to go through, there's so much here, how would you know where to find something? You don't have to just go and select it right off the bat. You can use this drop down go to, and it's going to display here in an order, which is going to go, unit or source first, and then it's going to give you the parameter name. So for instance, this gas flow is unit 1 gas flow. So we would just want to drill down to the unit 1 section and then go and find the gas flow parameter. Some other things to note here. When you do have your target parameter selected, it leaves it in the flow with all of the other parameters, which obviously, we're off the page here. We'd have to scroll down to see what all is being effective, and that's a really hard way to look at this. So you can go and select the target parameter and right click, and it's going to give you some more options. You can select here to maybe view in a new window, and as you can see, it's only pulling in parameters that affect gas flow. Other things on the left in the properties tab here, it's going to give you some information about each parameter that you select. So for instance, looking at gas flow, it tells us what the unit of measure is, and then it would tell us, so if we look at flow SCFH here, gas flow doesn't have a description configured, but flow does. So you can see if there was some sort of description for the parameter, that would also be displayed, as well as you could flip over like the summary tab, and it actually shows you the equation for that given parameter. Some other cool features, if you right click, you can go down to report selection, so you can launch a report from here. You can choose to the report network, which means you can launch a report and it's actually going to pull up all of the parameters that are currently in this network. So for instance, let's just go open up an average data. It's going to launch that with all the items selected from what you were looking at in SimScape. You can also do the same thing for Data Lab, edit selection. So this would just be pulling up the target parameter. If I was going to go to edit selection, I could open that up in CalLab or Data Lab, and you can even go to the RADA tool. But what I find most helpful is just to pull all this up, for instance, in Data Lab. And it's going to have the parameters already selected that you've got in that network. I believe that takes us to some of the design reports. Harvey, if you want to take it.
Yep. So one of the things in support that we get a lot of is, especially when newer folks come in and they start working in the Sims or start working on the DAS and getting familiar with StackVision, is we get a lot of questions as to, and they might not have access to like Stack Studio for whatever reason with their account. They might not be an administrator or something like that, but so they might not be familiar with how certain things are configured. So we get asked a lot, how is my system, what alarms are configured in there? How are my parameters, or what's the equation for this parameter, and so forth. So as you can see, SimScape can give you some of that information. But we also have some reports in here that fall under the system design group here. And notice there's an alarm system design that we can pull up, and it'll pull up this report here. There's a report called config or data controller design that'll pull up. You select which logger you want to look at, click show report, and I'm just going to pull up several of them, and then we'll go back and look at them here in a little bit. And then, for example, another one that might be of use is parameter detail report. Again, these are all under the system design, helps you kind of see how your system design. And if you did have Modbus, you could select Modbus for the server.config file that's on the in your logger. You can also pull that up here. And let's see. Come on. Well, I may have killed it. There it goes. Just taking a little while. So let's go look at the alarm system design. So as you can see here, you know, these are all the exceptions that are configured. You can see, and you can skip to different parts. Now, be aware, this particular report's not going to show you every single alarm that's configured in there, because we have, if you're familiar with StackVision, it has a lot of different areas where we can set up some other alarms. So there might be stuff in condition managers or X scripts and some other areas that won't show up here, but this is kind of the generic setup, the built-in alarms that are configured typically. And for example, you can see what types of digital inputs, what kind of alarms are being triggered by digital inputs. So you can see that here on this report, just with a quick glance, and see what you have there. And then you can also see polled average, or what we call polling alarms. So you can see which polling alarms are set up. So these are, if you can see right here, you have these set up for out of control. It shows you which flags are triggering this particular alarm. So when you see the T, that's the out of control flag. And then, but it's also saying it has to be a T, and anytime you see the exclamation, that means not, and the F is offline. So we want to see a T and not offline, and that would trigger the out of control alarm, or the alarm OOC. And it also, this particular one also assigns the OOC data mask for that particular data point. And then you can also see where not only can you have alarms here based off of flags, but you can also have based off of values, and it'll show you. So this is the 1 minute average. If it's greater than 16, you'll get an alarm. You'll get this bar press I alarm. And then, as you can see down here, there's some other ones with some high alarms and not in maintenance and not offline kind of stuff. And it also marks it in exceedance here. So this is just a quick way to see some of the alarms that are configured in the system that you might be getting on your alarm reports and so forth. Like I said, it doesn't cover every single alarm, because there are some other stuff that we do with scripting and stuff that might not show up, but it'll give you kind of the more basic alarms that might be coming into the system. The data controller design report is the report that shows how the data controller is configured in Stack Studio. And if you maintain Stack Studio, and you always make sure that that's where any changes are made, and you download that to your data controller, it should match what's in the data controller. And you can also jump to different parts of the report here that shows different things. Like, you know, this controller basics basically shows you how many current inputs you have, and how many status inputs, how many relay outputs, and so forth, for the basic stuff, the cards basically on that particular logger. Standard averaging channels, think of these as any of your kind of analog input channels. It tells you which analog inputs being used for that channel, what the input scaling 4 to 20, and then the scaled engineering outputs over here on the right hand side, and a little description. So you can jump. So for example, you want to go see how your calibration sequences are set up, you can jump down here to the bottom and see your calibration sequences and see how these phases are set up and so forth. You know, these are the math constants that are, well, keep in mind, these are the math constants that are in Stack Studio, configured in Stack Studio. Some of these constants get updated by channels and so forth, so they might not always match up, but at least this is what they were originally when it was initially configured, or since the last download. And so this will give you good information, like I said, if you're trying to figure out how your data logger is set up, and you don't have access to Stack Studio with your account. This is a good way to take a look at that. Another good report that's in the system design report is the parameter detail report, which I didn't select the unit, sorry. And then you want to sort by channel number, which is okay, or sort by field. We'll just leave the defaults there for now. And while I'm waiting on that, I'll jump over to the Modbus configuration. So this is the server.config file that gets installed or loaded into your logger if you were configured to do Modbus, and you can kind of go see how how it's configured for some of your Modbus channels that are coming in, the data that's coming in via Modbus, and you can kind of go look at that here. So it's just a quick report to view the settings in your configuration for Modbus. Let's go see. Oh, here's my parameter detail. Okay, so parameter detail is a nice report to see how your what parameters are configured in Stack Studio. So not every parameter here is in the logger. So a lot of times you'll see what we call central only, or channels that are only configured in Stack Studio or in StackVision. They're not in the logger. For instance, some of the more extended averages and that kind of stuff. So one of the things that you can see here that's pretty cool is equation settings. So if you have a question about an equation, you can jump down here and see what equations are set up for some of these parameters. The Part 75 base settings, you can see how that's set up. You got component IDs, formula IDs, system IDs, that kind of stuff. Whether or not it's got the bias adjustment configured and so forth. I know sometimes people ask if certain parameters are set up for missing data substitution, and this you can skip down here and see which parameters are set up for doing a missing data substitution. So you can jump down here, which parameters are being are configured for accumulation. So you can jump down here, which parameters am I doing linearity, that kind of stuff. So these reports are pretty cool. Like I said, especially when you don't have access to Stack Studio to go in and see how certain things are configured, or you don't want to go in there just because you don't want to accidentally change something or anything like that. But so the reports are pretty good for checking out how your system is configured. Again, all those reports are kind of in the system design section of the report menu here. Let's see, what else do we need? Oh, the other one on the parameter detail, I thought, let me see, did I have it in here? It's not on here. That we get questions on the time online channel. So we get a lot of questions on how is my unit configured? How does it determine if the unit's online or not? So you can look at your time online channels, and there's the multi-conditional time online. So you can check that here. What determines when my unit is actually online. So you can check that out in the data controller design. And I think that's all I had.
Yeah. Hey, Harvey, we had a question. Somebody wanted to see the side-by-side data lab view again, if you wanted to show that again.
Data lab again?
Yes.
All right. So unit 1, let's just pull up a parameter here. You can also just do a right click on data lab, and then you can do vertical or horizontal. So that would be the horizontal view, of course. We can do, oops, did I close it out? Sorry. Let me pull it up again. Unit 1, and then, so it moves that one to a new tab. And so depending on where I'm at, it'll open up the next one. So if I'm to unit 2, I can retrieve that here. So when you're on one side, so like for example, if I wanted to move this over here, it would move this one over to the Modbus. So whichever one I select, it'll basically open up another window to the right of it if you're doing the vertical, or below it if it's the horizontal. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's probably good. And then I had a question about backpulling data. If you're missing data, will it backpull the data no matter what state is in? And that's correct. So if the data is in the data controller and that data is not in StackVision, we have, the data would be considered null, right? It does not exist. it will backpull whatever data is in the data controller. So like if you failed a calibration or something and it was out of control data or whatever it was, that data is going to pull into the system in that same state. Let's see, I'm just kind of going back through some of the questions. We went a little longer than I thought we were going to, so I think now is just the time to open it up for questions and kind of go through. So yeah, so there's a request because there's some new StackVision users on the line to look at the StackVision help, how it can provide assistance for folks. Yeah, so in StackVision, if you just go up to the help icon, you can launch StackVision help, which is very handy, especially for new users. I mean, I use it all the time still too, because you can search keywords and it will take you to different write-ups and links that will kind of go through the StackVision sort of the manual so that you can troubleshoot.
So one of the things it'll do, so if you notice, if I'm in Data Lab and I hit, help, you can go here, or you can just hit F1. I'm going to hit F1, and notice it takes you to that section of the manual, of the online manual that you were on when you hit F1. So whatever you have selected, if you're on a certain tab, it'll kind of take you there to that section. But you can also just search. You can also just search for keywords here. So if you just want to go reports or something like that, and then it pulls up, oh, here's calibration detail. So it talks about calibration detail reports. If you want to do task scheduler, so we can go to the task scheduler section. So it's pretty cool. You can jump around, search for certain words that if you're trying to get some help on that. But it's a pretty good, our technical writing group's done a pretty good job of updating and keeping this up to date. And again, it's just as simple as hitting F1 or just hitting help and go select help from there. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's another one, but it's pretty specific. I think I'll answer that one. It's looking at calculations for errors as it relates to calibrations and stuff. So I think we can take that offline. I'll get with you. I see you on the thing. I'll get with you and we can go over that separately. I think that's about it. Oh, there's one from way earlier. I apologize for missing this. It was about linked reports and do they save individually or as one file? And I believe with what you're asking was probably maybe when I was looking at the group report generator, if you save to a file, it should run all those reports. It's going to save them out as each report individually. So you'll just select the location and then it's going to spit out each one of those reports. And then it'll put it wherever.
Yeah, it'll do them individually.
I think that's about it for the questions.
So the other thing I did want to go over is, let's do. So yeah, so anything that we went over today, feel free to contact customer support. You can email us or call us by phone, and we also have the live chat if you go to our website. If you have any other questions or need, start using some of this stuff and need some help with it, yeah, just definitely give us a call. And definitely go to our website for some of that information.
Yeah, and any questions directly about this presentation or anything like that, yeah, feel free to email into support or call. Again, my name is Michael Johnson, so if you want, you can ask for me, and I can try to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.